Good morning, Minister, I just want to ask you, in light of your request for the National Directorate for Fire and Emergency Management to convene and coordinate a task force which was to lead to the reappraisal of our approach to fire safety in Ireland, could you give us an update on where that task force is at right now? We have had some well-publicised issues with building defects and defects in fire regulations, such as Priory Hall, Longboat Quay, and as you and I will know, there are many others, unfortunately, around the country. So I want to know what plans you have to assist residents of multi-unit developments in particular and housing estates that do not meet fire standards and that have building defects.
Again, the primary responsibility for compliance with the requirements of the building regulations rests with the owners, designers and builders of the buildings, and as such, in general, building defects are matters of resolution between the contracting parties involved, the homeowner, the builder, the developer and the respective insurers, structural guarantee or warranty scheme. It is incumbent on all the parties responsible for poor workmanship and of the supply of defective materials to face up to their responsibilities and to take appropriate action to provide remedies for the affected homeowners. In addition, when a building is constructed and occupied, statutory responsibility for safety is assigned by Section 18(2) of the Fire Service Act 1981 and 2003 to the person having control of the building. The person having control is required to take responsible measures to guard against the outbreak of fire and to ensure the safety of persons in the event of a fire. In multi-unit developments, the person having control is generally the owner management company. Where apartment buildings are defective from a fire safety perspective come to the attention of the local authority, fire services, they work with management companies and other stakeholders to ensure that appropriate levels of fire safety are achieved to minimise the effects to life. In response to the many building failures that emerged in the last decade, my department has been driving a comprehensive building control reform agenda. The measures involved include the introduction of the Building Control Amendment Regulation 2014 and the establishment of a National Building Control Management Project and progressing primary legislation, the Building Control Construction Industry Legislation Bill, through the Houses as well. The aim is to promote a culture of competence, good practice and compliance with the building regulations in the construction sector, and this will continue to be the subject of focus attention in the months ahead. In relation to the Fire Safety Task Force, the aftermath of Grenville, in June 2017, in recognition of the fears expressed for the fire safety, my department, under the direction of Minister Murphy, the National Director for Fire and Emergency Management, was asked to convene and coordinate a task force to lead a reappraisal of our approach to fire safety in Ireland. The work of the task force has now been completed and its findings are reflected in the Fire Safety in Ireland report and the Fire Safety Task Force, and the work is ongoing over the last couple of months as well. In the report, the task force acknowledges the importance of fire safety in apartment buildings, and below is a kind of a detailed summary in the written reply I can give you as well in relation to work they are doing. But just in essence, it is estimated up to 500,000 people live in about 200,000 apartments across the country. From a fire safety perspective, the person having control of the apartment and the building of the premises is the owner of the occupier management company. The key to life safety in all apartment buildings is a proper two-stage fire detection and alarm system, together with an evacuation strategy and involvement of residents in preventing nuisance alarms and knowing how to react in the event of the fire alarms being activated. So again, it's an ongoing detail. I'm sure you read that. We have asked local authorities to engage as the local lead fire authority directly with the management company.
Yeah, Minister, much of the response is just restating what the obvious is. Now, one area is it's a significant number of people live in multi-unit developments, as you've mentioned, about 500,000 people. They are mainly the people who are at the coalface on this issue. And what I was really looking for was an update on the implementation of the recommendations of that report. What is the mechanism for them to report back to the department? Or do I take it from the response that it's really, okay, it's the responsibility of the owner management companies and you'll sink or swim? And speaking of sinking, that's the issue. You see, it's the sinking fund for many of them is insufficient to deal with building defects, to deal with fire safety issues, and particularly if a bondholder, insurance company, or a builder does not come back to fix those defects, where do they go? So the Apartment Owners Network have raised this directly at Housing Committee, as members of the Housing Committee will know. So I'm just wondering, how often do your department get updates on this? Have you got a handle on the scale of the problem for building defects? And will government look at mechanisms to assist in this area? Because as I've timed it before, it is a ticking time bomb in my belief. Many of these owner management companies are verging on insolvent and don't have the funds to carry out the works that are required.
Ministers, 1 minute.
Again, last concur, I suppose in relation to the recommendations of the Fire Safety Task Force, and that we are working through them as well, and Minister Murphy again recently met the Apartment Owners Association as well to discuss all the concerns they have and the concerns they have around sinking funds and who covers the costs and so on this as well. So that's an ongoing piece of work. But again, to go back to the recommendations from the task force, the key ones were the registration of fire stopping subcontractors, the roles and responsibilities of building management companies, e.g. to review and maintain fire safety arrangements, to keep the fire safety register, to advise the residents on what to do in the event of a fire alarm. That's all work that's very, very important as well. But also that each local authority fire services should offer training to building management companies on key life safety issues. And again, working with management companies through the process. It doesn't recommend that we have to have a full investigation of all properties, because the number of defects that were identified were quite low, in my understanding. But there's procedures put in place there. But again, well, it's an ongoing work, but the task force has said very clearly that management companies, owners of properties, resident associations need to deal with the local authority, which are the local building control authority, to work through these as well. But we are very clear where the responsibility lies, and we understand and we know there's issues around sinking funds and costs and so on. That's ongoing work. But again, the responsibility lies with the owners and managers of these properties.
Okay, thank you. Final question.
And all the professional bodies in place.
Final question.
Well, it's good to know that the department are, to some degrees, you've said that you're trying to quantify what the issues are, and you've mentioned in your response that the level of defects that come back is quite low. That surprises me to some degree. I suppose it really depends on how serious one takes the defects that are there. I suppose the primary one being fire safety, and that's where we've seen the most publicised incidents of people having to be evacuated from apartment blocks and multi-unit developments. There are others out there, Minister, that I know both of you will be aware of as well, where owner management companies and indeed owners are trying to work through those issues. So no one's looking for to abrogate their responsibilities on this. They're looking for support on it. So I suppose, can I ask finally, the implementation which you say is ongoing, have you set a time frame for, or a timeline for the implementation of the recommendations, or do you see this as an ongoing process? And will we actually get to a stage whereby we would establish in the area of owner management companies a proper regulator? That would be someone there who would be a go-to office for owner management companies that may be able to actually collate this information, because it does surprise me somewhat that the level of defects that you've found so far, I don't know what percentage you've got, seems to be quite small according to your response.